I just finished putting the second coat on this cabinet door maybe an hour or so ago. I normally would recommend waiting a little longer because you could, if it's still not settled, I'd probably give it a day before I do this technique, but I'm gonna keep an eye on it. We'll see how it goes. If I mess it up, I'll just paint it over again. Well, imagine again, this could be your cabinet to your kitchen. And but this one comes from a larger dresser that I'm working on. This is driftwood, and we're about to put in fluff to help accent. This is the only panel in the entire dresser that has these panels. So I'm going to highlight it, and we're going to bring out the two colors. In this case, this is actually going to be the third coat of paint. I could have not painted the second coat, but I think there's some areas that still could use a third coat. As long as you're painting thin, you can't put too much paint on your project, technically. So let's get into that. We do have sections next to each other that we'll have to kind of work around. So it's going to be a little creative to mist without getting spots somewhere else. So we'll try and be very careful with that. All right, so I need to really only focus on the panel. I'm going to use a different flat medium brush. Don't need to put a lot of paint down, just enough to be able to blend. Only concerned about putting paint where I'm blending. I'm not suggesting you make a mess everywhere else. You might want to check your brush strokes. But in my years of experience, I figured out how to paint smooth, so the brush strokes really aren't so much of an issue. And that's usually just those finishing fine-tuned touches. All right, so that we're working quickly here. Let me grab I'm going to use one of the artist brushes, like the 1-inch, and go into our fluff. And let's see, I think I'm just going to put a bead of paint towards the crevice or the deepest part of this design. You can actually do this with Voodoo gel stain. You can do this with the, pickling white glaze. There's so many options. We're using paint. I could probably demonstrate all three sometime, and I probably have in all my YouTube videos. All right, kind of messy, but I'm just getting the paint in there. At this point now, I think I'm going to go ahead, and I happen to have a few extra. Go for another 1-inch brush, and I'm going to mist this. Get my brush wet. And this is where I'm trying to blend those two colors in. So light touch. You are blending the colors together, so it makes sense to work it a little bit. More than likely what we're going to find here is that I will need to touch up. I really don't mind if the fluff almost takes over this entire middle panel. What I mean by this is the recessed area. Now what I need to do, in my opinion, is I need to come back and do a cleanup run. Like anywhere I don't want fluff, I'm just going to run a quick run over, dip into the paint, steady hand. This is optional, and just kind of clean up where fluff may have gotten that I don't want it. If you don't want to do this step, then it might be good to either tape off where you don't want paint to get. Like even on this flat section, I really don't want fluff on that. So you may have to, tape off or something, but just kind of keep an eye on it. Now, ideally what I would say at this point is you could let it dry and just decide if you like that look. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and keep going and trust that it's going to turn out beautifully when we're done. We should have a bead of highlight in each of these panels. So that's really what we're going for. All right, I'm going to use my hand here to kind of block the mist from going in the top section. We're going to put some more paint down. I hope this technique is coming through okay on the cameras. And with the lighting in here, sometimes the wetness of the paint, or the wet paint, has a shine and you just can't You can't see the result of your work until it dries. Stab that paint in there. All right, here I'm going to soften any brush strokes that got out of line. Back to our artist brush. Put some fluff in there. You can use cotton or there's really not too many. Dixie Belle doesn't have a ton of gray colors, and most of them are going to be darker than this, so I was going to say you can use a lighter gray, but I'm not sure there is one. So in this case, you could use cotton or fluff or any color you want. This is chalk mineral paint, so help yourself. And now we're going to go in with our 1-inch brush, and this is going to be our blending step. So in a sense, I'm almost just painting a lighter color of gray by the time I mix these two together. But because you're mixing two colors, that's called blending. All right, and now I'm going to keep wiping off excess. Now I'm going to soft pressure, just try and disguise those brush strokes. And the reason why you can disguise those brush strokes is there's so many bristles in here. Those are all making those brush strokes less prominent. If the next step, which I did on the other part, is too big, grab a smaller brush to do your touch-up, or just be very careful. And you can also let the blending dry before you do this step, but I'm just knocking it out while I'm in here. I actually did use a lot of paint in there, so normally you might just do a small bead of it, but touch this up. So sometimes when your colors are touching other colors like that, you're going to have to do some touch-up. It's kind of just, you can see it's wet and discoloring, and as different levels of it dry, you start questioning your existence, like, oh my goodness, this looks horrible. But be patient, let it dry, let it do its thing, and then just go with it. Just touching that up, make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, I think that's it for that panel tonight. We'll let that dry. I'll evaluate it tonight or tomorrow, see how it looks. And I like how having that highlight will bring the attention to the middle of the dresser. I think that'll be a nice touch. So that was Driftwood and Fluff for those two colors. So until next time, that's it for today. Stay tuned for the finished results, and y'all take care.
That's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.